In the previous video, walked through each of the tools that we've used to date, that we've installed on our blogs and in different places, and what those purposes are. Now I'd like to turn that around a little bit and have a better idea of how effective each of those can be. And this will be useful when you're crafting your blog posts about how things work and what was effective and what was not. And so I've created a worksheet that I added to the overall social media analysis spreadsheet. And the point of this is to measure traffic and effect on particular pages that you're putting out there, whether that's blog posts or landing pages, anything that you're really trying to measure. And so put just a few blog posts over the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to walk through how we put together some information that we can use to analyze its effectiveness. And so you'll see we have just some information that I've already grabbed: the initial date of the post, the title of the post, and the day of the week. And so if I go into this post itself, I have a lot of information that I can grab right from the post at the bottom using my social sharing plugin, but I've got some other information that I need to grab as well. So I'm going to take a look very quickly and see what the timestamp was when this was actually posted. And I'll see that this was posted on February 6th at 9:41. And so I'm going to just back out of that. I don't need to save that. So it was 9:41 p.m. Okay, and so now I'm going to go down and just try and take a look at each of the timestamps and when information was posted out there. This is good if you can capture this information going forward, so you can have some idea. So I can see that if I go into Twitter, I can actually enter the URL and search at the top, and it'll bring up the post. I can see that I posted that at 10:10 a.m. on the 7th. And as it turns out, I'll actually just make this and I know that all of these unfortunately were about the same time, so I could vary that a little bit, and then so I can go into StumbleUpon. And actually, if I look at that, I can get some information about what category I posted in, what the effectiveness was. And I just want to point out one thing within StumbleUpon. It's very important to pick the category if you're posting something, to figure out which category you're going to post. Business, for example, has 1.4 million followers. And you can see, design, marketing, entrepreneurship. Just get an idea of how big your audience is, and then be very particular about the words that you tag it with, because it'll have higher traffic results. And so that's one thing you want to kind of measure. If I go back and just click on my profile, it'll show me on that particular post. I categorized it in marketing. I posted it on the 7th as well, so I can go back and enter that information in. I'm going to go through just quickly and actually grab the information that I have on that post, as far as how many tweets were out there, how many Facebook shares and LinkedIn, etc. And so I can just scroll down to the bottom. So I see I have 17 tweets on that post. So I'm going to just go down to the response, 17 tweets, 8 Google+, 5 LinkedIn, 5 Facebook likes, and 1 StumbleUpon like. All right, now I'm gonna just, while I'm down here, I'm gonna go into to MailChimp and take a look at that. First, I just want to say I can actually go back into Google Plus and Facebook, obviously, and get the actual timestamp on when those were posted. Also, with this count, just to give you some information that's absolutely worthless, you can actually go to this URL right here and then enter the URL that you're tracking, and this will tell you from Twitter's API exactly how many tweets there were, and so that matches up with what the Google plugin is. Within Bitly, you can also do the same thing, which is going to, even if you didn't originally share it on Bitly, you can enter the post in and then go to Global Stats, and it will give you all of the tweets that it's found using Bitly that track back to the same page. So now I'm going to go into MailChimp for just a second and add that information in. And so when you go to the Reports tab, you can come in and see what the overall traffic is and sort of get an overall trending analysis. I'm going to click on this particular post, and I'll see that I have 22 opens and 5 clicks. Depending on the kind of content that you're putting out there, the click-through rate's going to be different. Most of the content that I'm trying to measure is really going to be more on opens than it is on click-through. There's not really a call to action within the blog post. The call to action is to read the blog post, and so opens really becomes my best measurement. So I have 22 opens and 5 clicks. You can also enter this as a percentage. For me, I'm really interested more in numbers and overall numbers than I am percentages. And so I'm just going to enter in a hard number there. So now I'm going to actually go into Google FeedBurner first of all to get the total reach of that actual post. And so I'm just opening up FeedBurner here. I can see based on the day really is the best way to tell what an overall reach was. And so I can see that really on the 7th is when this post went out, that my reach was 34. And you can see a little more information about your feed items and how well they performed if you want to do that. But I'm going to go back and add 34 in there. So I get some interesting information about what the trend looks like. Now I'm going to go into Google Analytics. And so when you actually open Google Analytics, it will start out with the default of the previous day and the 1 month before the previous day. I've just closed this in really to this category from the date of this post until now. So I can see how many visitors there were, how many of those were unique, page views, etc. This is it gives me very little information, as I covered before in the overall scheme of things. And so I've created this custom dashboard that allows me to really drill down into some information, figuring out what the referral sources are, what the key landing pages are, where most of my traffic's coming from, and a lot of this general information here. So this, as I've said, can kind of be very easy to customize. I can move different pieces of the dashboards around, and that just makes it more visible and viewable to look at. But this page is not really going to give me the information that I'm looking for. I'm going to actually go to drill into these landing pages. So I'll see the post that I'm looking for right here, really the enough with paragraphs. Now one thing that I will do is just copy at least and paste that information over. And just to make sure that because I've put this hash mark at the end, it's not cutting out other sources. But this indeed looks like 91 page views by 77 unique visitors into the page. And so that gives me what I want, 77 unique page views. Come and plug that in. The other thing I'm going to look at is pages per visit. So when somebody comes into the site, how many pages did they actually visit while they were there? Oops. Okay. And let's see, I'm going to come back and get that data. There were 3 minutes and 43 seconds on the page. The bounce rate is when somebody comes in and leaves the page without actually clicking on anything and just bouncing straight out, so 73.53%. Let's see if I back out, if I have the pages per visit number. Here we go. So I see that actually the pages per visit was rather high on that post of the entrances there. So 1.81. Okay, and the last piece of information that I want to see is the referrals and sort of where most of the traffic into that post came. And so the funnels are a very interesting way to visualize and analyze that information. And so I can come into, if I just click over on the left-hand side into traffic sources, expand the social column, and then look at visitors flow, I will see where the different the referral sources within social networks are. And then I can look at particular landing pages. So I can highlight all of the traffic coming into this page and then obviously where they're going to as well. And so I had 25 of the 85 Twitter referrals over in this course of time that came in from Twitter. Let's see. Facebook 5, StumbleUpon 1. And then LinkedIn and Google+. And so that gives me some interesting information about what really the return was on different tweets that were put out there. And so I can see that basically everybody who shared on Facebook also visited the site, or the equal number. LinkedIn, only 40% of those who liked or shared it actually read it in that form. Google+, 62%. And then where I had the greater impact was actually the more visitors that viewed the page than actually clicked on the link on Twitter. And so that was the best return. One of the things I just want to focus on is really within this visualization and flow, there's a lot of power to really analyze exactly how people are visiting the site. This is one of a newer tool that Google Analytics has added, and that I think is very, very valuable. So if you click on audience and go to visitor flow, you can get a lot of interesting insight into where most of your traffic's coming from. So if I take an overall look, I see that there's some sort of referral that happens with most of the traffic. The none is direct. Organic is a search engine. 11 in this time period, 11 of all the visits came from a feed, and 4 actually came from an email. And so I can really drill into that and kind of figure out, okay, this is the home page. So 146 of all the visits, where did they go? A lot of them went straight to our class page and then down into some other elements there. So that pretty much wraps up this analysis. When you start to put that information together, it gives you some interesting insight. Why was traffic so high on some posts and so low on others? The timeliness, this was the day after the Super Bowl, and so there was a lot of traffic that came in on the Oreo post. But also this don't start with blogging, and so don't start blogging, and that was a fairly controversial post. And so I can take all of this information and start to put it together and understand some of what drove traffic. I know just based on recent activity that I posted a StumbleUpon link into the psychology category, and it had an overwhelming response. And so also the week versus the weekend, the repetitiveness of posts. There were several days that there was one post right after another. In fact, This Enough with Paragraphs was the third in a row. So how did that impact overall traffic? So anyway, this gives you some information that you can use to analyze your traffic and analyze the effectiveness of the different social networks that you're using.